You can feel free to keep your video on or off. I know that everyone's in a different situation, so just do whatever you feel comfortable doing. If you have a question, there will be a Q&A session at the end for you to ask that dying question. And, oh, still some people coming in. Lastly, the ultimate way to get the most out of this webinar is to identify the actions that resonate with you, so you can write them down to hold yourself accountable, or even better, tell them to a friend or people around you, because knowledge shared is knowledge squared. All right, so moving into the celebration agenda, I'll introduce myself briefly, then we'll move into the history of Earth Day, then touch on the 50th anniversary theme, then move into what you all came for, 5 ways you can celebrate Earth Day. I'll go over some additional resources that I mentioned throughout the presentation, then we'll hit a Q&A, and the after party is at your house. Hope you don't mind. So I figured that I would tell you a little bit about myself, because it would be rude to throw a party without introducing the host. My name is Amber Rose Greeny. I started working at the IUPUI Office of Sustainability in 2018. I was the recycling intern for a while, moved into the energy internship, and am now sustainability support. So I've been here for a while, and it's been a pleasure since. I am pursuing a Master's of Public Affairs, concentrating on sustainability and environmental policy. So Earth Day, kind of my thing. I love hiking and traveling. A fun fact about myself, I have a big brain, literally, like my brain is so big that it grew out of my skull. So ironically enough, a few days ago, I found out that I was honored as the Premier 10 graduate student at IUPUI. So basically, I'm a total nerd. And my favorite holiday is Earth Day, of course. So what's the dirt on Earth Day? Section 1. See what I did there? All right, history of Earth Day. Let's dive right in. So on April 22nd in 1970, 20 million Americans, which was 10% of the US population at the time, took to the streets, college campuses, and hundreds of cities to protest environmental ignorance and also educate people on pressing environmental issues. And this was really to demand a new way forward for our planet. And if you're wondering why April 22nd was chosen as the first Earth Day, it was based on its timing between spring break and final exams to allow as many students as possible to participate. So that's fitting that lots of our Zoom guests are students. And it started as a unified response to the awareness of our environment in crisis. So this was spurred by, for example, the Santa Barbara oil spill, which killed millions of birds and sea life, the Cuyahoga River fire, which was literally so polluted that it caught fire, as well as lots of cities that were just buried under their own smog. So after witnessing the Santa Barbara oil spill, Republican Senator Nelson of Wisconsin founded Earth Day, and I wanted to mention this quote that I love from him. He said that the point of Earth Day was to get a nationwide demonstration of concern for the environment so large that it would shake the political establishment and finally force this issue permanently onto the national political agenda. So again, big shout out to Senator Nelson. He is our Earth Day MVP. So what were the results of the first Earth Day? The first Earth Day in 1970 actually changed the world, and this was by launching a wave of environmental action. So a few months after the first Earth Day, we saw the passage of landmark environmental laws. These included the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and even inspired President Nixon to create the EPA, which today provides legal and regulatory mechanisms to protect our environment, which, believe it or not, did not exist before 1970. In the picture to the right, you can see a cute picture of President Nixon and Lady Pat Nixon planting a tree on the White House lawn. So this actually inspired many countries to adopt similar laws. And because of this action, the first Earth Day is credited with launching the modern environmental movement in the US. So congratulations, because today you are playing a part in celebrating the planet's largest civic event. So to sum it up, the Earth Day celebration started as a grassroots movement and slowly transformed into what it is today. And the UN now annually recognizes April 22nd as International Earth Day. And this is really to unite the world into one movement. So moving on into section 2, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So you might be asking, what is the theme for this monumental day? If I was tech savvy, there would be a drumroll noise cued here, because it is climate action. Speaking of which, that adorable picture was taken at a Fridays for Future protest at the Indiana State House to get our representatives to start taking action in preparing Indiana for climate resiliency. And this is important because climate change represents the biggest challenge to the future of humanity and the life systems that our world support. So now we're going to shift gears and talk about the significance of climate action as the theme for the 50th anniversary. Climate action, but why? Fun fact for you, Oxford Dictionary's 2019 word of the year was climate emergency. So as you can see, even Bill Nye acknowledges that our planet is on fire, and this is an actual crisis. But why? Because by 2050, with a projected global population increase of about 9.6 billion people, we would need the equivalent of almost 3 planets worth of resources to sustain our current way of living. So why is that the case? To talk briefly about climate change, it's now affecting every country on every continent and is occurring at an alarming rate, with impacts on human health, the economy, and the stability of our natural environment. It's already disrupted national economies and affected lives. And this kind of stuff affects people and the amount of money that they're going to have to spend today, but also tomorrow. So how is this happening? To make a complicated process brief, you can say the picture on the right shows an increased emission of greenhouse gases from the human enhanced effect as opposed to the natural greenhouse effect. So on the right, you can see that we have greenhouse gases such as methane and carbon dioxide that work together to essentially create this thick, invisible blanket in our atmosphere. So you can see that visualized in red. And these gases actually trap heat and block it from escaping. And this is what increases our average global temperature, significantly driving global disruption to climate systems as we know them. So when I taught my first year environmental justice students about this, I think it really helped them to understand thinking of the planet's temperature like our own. So having an internal body temperature of 100 compared to 101 could be the difference between staying home and going to the hospital. So we need to make sure that the Earth doesn't need to go to the hospital. And the impact is, I'm not gonna lie, a little bit scary. So greenhouse gas emissions are now at their highest rate in history. So we're seeing things like increasing surface temperatures, rising global sea levels, changing weather patterns, melting glaciers, acidifying oceans, more extreme weather events, and also a species extinction rate occurring at 1,000 times more than natural. So the impact of climate change hits pretty close to home for me, as my friends who live in Florida, California, India have all either faced or are at serious risk from increasing wildfires, drought, hurricanes, and sea level rise. So for our future, climate change will continue negatively affecting our food supply, national security, global health, and pushing weather patterns into extremes. So at this point, the question we're asking is, at what rate will this happen? 1 year ago, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, also known as the IPCC, you may have heard of them as, released a special report that showed that we have to cut our carbon emissions in half by 2030 in order to avoid the most catastrophic and irreparable changes. And this is why climate action is so important, because none of us can wait for action to be taken. So transitioning into turning the tide. And I wanted to make this transition because I know it can be pretty easy to feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of the climate crisis. But not only can this be dangerous, it can also ignore the progress that we've made so far. So since this is a celebration, let's celebrate by talking about the progress that has already been made, and also for a healthy dose of optimism. So now, for the first time, renewable energy has become cheaper than coal in the US. Consumers are now choosing sustainable products at a higher rate each year, which demonstrates to companies that now is the time to prioritize sustainability. For example, even Shell, who is the largest oil company in the world, is responding to shareholder pressure, and just today actually released their climate action plan, committing them to net zero emissions by 2050. Additionally, 500,000 youth worldwide have taken action on climate change. So if you look at the picture on the right, you might recognize some familiar faces, as well as many IUPUI students that were there that day at the Fridays for Future protest at the Indiana State House. And if you click on the link on the screen, it will take you to the virtual Earth Day strike, so you can use your voice to demand that our government play the bold leadership role that's needed right now. Looking globally, I had the privilege to study abroad in the world's most sustainable country, Costa Rica, and through the research that I did, I found that they operate on 100% renewable energy, 250 to about 300 days of the year. Additionally, they committed to being carbon neutral by 2021. That's next year. That's crazy. Additionally, Sweden followed their path by committing to eliminating fossil fuels from electricity generation by 2040. And Germany is on a similar path, now having outstripped coal and generating 77% of their electricity from renewables. So this is climate change's second story. And I hope it's one that both gives us hope for the future and spurs us forward into further action. So in 2015, the Paris Agreement was signed within the UN, which deals with greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, adaptation, finance, and a few other things, and now has been adopted by every nation. And many of you guys have probably heard that the Trump administration actually announced their intention to withdraw from this agreement. But, fun fact for you, they cannot legally do so until November of 2020. And since they made this announcement, a groundswell of people from the private sector and state and local governments have risen to the challenge by signing on to the We Are Still In campaign. And these organizations and individuals both recognize that every one of us must build on the successes that have come and rapidly transform how we live and do business. Because realistically, the window of opportunity is small, and there's a job for all of us to do. So thinking ultimately, the success of climate change will mean all of us working together with as much speed and thoughtfulness as we can. We can each find ways to impact, whether that's launching bold initiatives to reduce carbon emissions on your campus or in your community, or even just changing the light bulb at your desk lamp. But we don't have time to dwell on why this might not work. We just have to move forward with why we can and must win. And moving to section 3, what you've all been waiting for, 5 ways that you can celebrate Earth Day. So the world needs you and your actions for Earth Day 2020. And although many of these events have unfortunately been canceled due to COVID-19, there is still so much that you can do to help both protect and restore our planet. So moving right in, starting with the first way, by both maintaining social distance and getting outside to celebrate, you can participate in the Great Global Cleanup. So if you're from the Indy area, Keep Indianapolis Beautiful has a challenge for you. And if you're not, then I have a challenge for you to make our public places cleaner than they've ever been before. So you might be asking, how do I participate? Super easy. All you have to do is grab a grocery or trash bag, grab some gloves, and head outside anywhere in your neighborhood, park, or anywhere that you know litter needs to be cleaned up. Pick it up and fill your bag. And when you're done, you can take a picture and share it online by tagging at KIB.org and hashtag every litter bit. Love the puns. Then, of course, properly dispose of your waste. And I know we all know how. Wash your hands. And even though I know that you, of course, don't need an incentive to pick up waste, there are prizes. The person who collects the most bags of trash will receive a $50 gift certificate to a local indie business, and the 4 remaining will receive $25 gift certificates. So you can participate as much as you want. So if you really want those gift cards, feel free to just clean up the entire city. Now you might be asking, what difference does this actually make? The impact of our mishandled waste is pretty monumental. So this ranges from choking wildlife to poisoning our water sources. So by picking up litter, your initiative can actually help limit these occurrences. And it's also just a great way for you to get in touch with nature in a way that helps remind you of the gifts that our planet offers us. And remember that you can celebrate Earth Day every day by respecting our mother and picking up litter each time you see it on the ground. Moving into number 2, thinking globally, COVID-19 is hitting economies everywhere hard. So seek out local businesses or organizations that advance the things that you're most concerned about, and then find ways to support them. So whether you're concerned about your favorite local restaurant staying in business, or sustaining the efforts of environmental activist groups, or making sure your favorite non-for-profit is able to maintain their efforts. The investment that you make today could be a promise for their future tomorrow. And supporting local in any way possible is really the best action that you can take to keep money in your local economy as opposed to going to big box store accounts. And if you're wondering how you could provide support, there really are so many ways. You could become a member, donate, sign up to volunteer, subscribe to their newsletter, promote their social media platforms, support their legislative work. Really, the list goes on. And at the link below, that will take you to all of the indie restaurants and shops that are now promoting the ability for customers to either buy a gift card or order food to pick up curbside. Number 3, plant a tree. With this simple act, you can celebrate the Earth by essentially adding a lung to our planet, as well as, of course, aiding to the health and wellness of the world that we all live in. So you might be wondering, how do you get a tree? It's actually pretty easy. For $10, you could become a member of the Arbor Day Foundation, and they'll send you 10 free trees. Or even better, you could support a local nursery. And if you can't plant a tree, another great option is to donate to groups that do plant trees. One, for example, locally is Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, or the Canopy Project, which for every $1 donated, they plant a tree across the world. And because nothing tastes like produce that you've grown yourself, you can consider putting together your own garden to grow veggies in your yard or on your patio. And in addition to physical and mental health benefits, gardening also can save you money, enrich the area around you, and give you an opportunity to get outside. And keep in mind that all year round, you can support local farmers by buying their produce. And one topic that is important to mention on this slide is that gardening does address food security, especially in times of crisis. So looking at Indiana specifically, 1 in 8 Hoosiers struggles with hunger. And this is something that's personal to me because food insecurity is an issue impacting our campus, IUPUI, pretty hard in knowing that 40% of students are food insecure. So on this slide, you can see our garden manager, Nick, working on our campus gardens, and much of this produce is actually donated to Paws Pantry, which supports students who are food insecure. Number 4, take action and grow your knowledge. Education is really the key to everything that we do for the environment. And the more that you know about what you can do to protect the environment, the more you can share with others. And with climate action being the Earth Day theme, now is the perfect time to take that action. So I'll give you a few examples. One being using the power of your voice in contacting your elected officials. So you could write an email to your representative about legislation at the state or national level. Now that we live in a digital age, you could follow your legislature on Facebook or Twitter to learn about the events they're attending and also to gain insight into their views and beliefs. Letters are also a really effective tool, so you could make it fun and organize a letter writing party. The Hoosier Environmental Council actually has sample letters that you can just fill it in and send it off. So it's a really easy way to make your voice heard. But keep in mind that really nothing is more effective than an in-person meeting. So you could attend a Meet Your Legislature event, or you could schedule an in-person meeting, or even just invite them for coffee. And keep in mind that when you are meeting with your representative and talking to them about these issues, you have the opportunity to demand that our basic needs of clean air, water, and land are met, and also that they can be enjoyed for future generations to come. And I know something that was really daunting for me was keeping in mind that, okay, I'm going to meet with them, but what am I going to talk about when I meet with them? And something that really helped me is checking out the Hoosier Environmental Bill Watch. So they actually post all of the relevant environmental bills, and being subscribed to that helps me stay up to date on environmental legislation that could impact me or other Hoosiers. And then I put a little star on my calendar to reach out to my representatives once a month. Another great way to take action is to ask your energy company about green power options and resources. So specifically in Indianapolis, we have 2 main energy providers, being Indiana Power and Light and Duke, and both offer versions of free energy efficiency assessments, energy saving kits, as well as rebates and discounts on energy saving products. And a little sustainability hack that most people don't know about is that many power companies actually offer a renewable energy option for only a little bit more than your normal energy bill. For example, Indiana Power and Light's green power option allows you to specify a portion or all of your monthly electricity to be generated from our Midwestern wind farms. And on average, this is $1 extra on your bill. And then with the Duke Go Green program, I know that you can purchase blocks of 100 kilowatt hours for just $180 a month. That is $1.80. So there's no maximum that you can purchase with this, so you could offset as much energy as you want. And for those of you in another country or outside of Indiana, don't fret, because other electricity companies likely have their own options. So call your provider to see what's available to you. And last but not least, take an inventory of your own impact. So check out that graph and where the US falls compared to other countries. The average carbon footprint for a person in the US is about 16 tons. And the average for the rest of the country is, or the rest of the world, is about 4 tons. So to have the best chance of avoiding this 3-degree rise in global temperatures, our global carbon footprint per year has to drop to 2 tons by 2050. 16, 4, 2. Kind of daunting. Keep in mind, this isn't going to happen overnight. So by us making small changes to our actions, we can start making a big difference. And I'll share a few resources with you that you can calculate your carbon footprint with in the next slide. And the Nature Conservancy and EPA both have fantastic tools to do this, assessing your travel, home living, food, shopping, going over your footprint, and then having customized actions to take to limit your carbon footprint. In using that, you can take this inventory and put together a list of sustainability goals. So think about the questions: what do you want to change? What steps are you going to take in order to make sure you can meet these goals without a lot of hassle? And then prioritize those above everything else. So some of the things that you could think of to limiting your footprint would be saying goodbye to plastic water bottles simply by carrying a reusable one. You could switch all of your e-bills and online invoices, as well as printing double-sided, and that alone can save millions of trees every year. Think about if you have a recycling or compost place in plan, and if you already do, congratulations, you rock. If not, you can, or even if you do, you can look at ways to expand what you're already recycling. And if you don't, then don't worry, you can find out what you can recycle in your local area, and then subscribe to either a curbside recycling or curbside compost subscription. And if those aren't feasibly available to you due to economic reasons, you can also find your local drop-off area to still make a difference in your personal waste diversion. You could also update your light bulbs and switch to LEDs, reduce your water usage by taking song-long showers, wash dishes and clothes with cold water instead of hot, which actually reduces your energy usage by half. Now that COVID-19 has impacted businesses pretty hard, we're seeing telecommuting to be the new norm right now. So after this transition, you could talk to your boss of whether or not this would still be feasible for you to keep up to both limit your carbon footprint and limit your organization's Scope 3 greenhouse gases. And if that's not possible, you can always look at options to use public transportation or carpool to work, or anywhere you have to go for that matter. And then I wanted to go over some of the resources that I mentioned throughout the presentation. So these being the Every Litter Bit with KIB, a link to support any local indie businesses, restaurants, the Canopy Project, which for every $1 donated, 1 tree is planted. The Arbor Day Foundation has memberships for $10, and if you subscribe, they will send you 10 free trees, well, free for your membership of $10. Still a great deal. The Hoosier Environmental Council Bill Watch that I mentioned, so you can stay up to date on environmental legislation, as well as sample letters for you to send to your representatives. And then I also included 2 really great carbon footprint calculators. The first is from the Nature Conservancy, and this one is pretty quick. And the second one is the EPA's carbon footprint calculator, and this one is a bit more thorough and more accurate as well. Then I also included a link to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13, Climate Action. So if you want to know what else is going on across our world in regards to combating climate change and building resiliency, that's a great place to start. And then I also put a link to a summary of the IPCC's report on global warming, so you can see where I got a lot of these statistics in my presentation. And the last link there is the digital climate strike that you can check out today to make your voice heard to our representatives. And I know you're probably just wanting to click on every single one of these links, but don't worry, I'm going to send a follow-up email to all of you with all of these links and other additional resources. So I've got another party poll for you guys. So I'm going to shoot that out right now. And we're gonna spice things up. It's a multiple choice, and you can answer, how are you going to celebrate Earth Day? And while you are answering that, I'll go over a few ways that we can stay in touch. I included our office email, and then also our office website. So you can check that out. We have a webinar next Monday, April 27th at 3 on how to conserve food scraps in your own backyard, as well as other Earth Month resources. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms at IUPUI Sustain. You also have my email in case you want to reach out to me personally. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. but I wanted to thank you guys so much for celebrating my favorite holiday with me. And remember that we can celebrate Earth Day every day. So I'm going to share this polling with you guys so you can see the awesome things that everyone is going to do. Ooh. Sorry, guys. Awesome. So it looks like we've got tons of litter cleanup. Love to see it. Great way to get outside. Followed by planting something. Awesome. And calculating our carbon footprints. Sharing the knowledge that you learned. Love that. Knowledge shared is knowledge squared. So now we're going to move into the Q&A. So you can either stick around for that or hop off if you're feeling super motivated to go celebrate right this second. I won't be offended, but you guys can feel free to unmute yourselves or put your web camera on. And if you have any questions that have been racking your mind, I'd be happy to answer them. Or if you just have another way to celebrate Earth Day that you want to share, I know I would love to hear it. So what do you got? Let's see. Nick says, what is the most effective way that you found to communicate with representatives to get them to push meaningful climate change legislation? Yeah, so I have for a while sent emails to my representative, and sometimes would get frustrated with the same default message that I got back. Of course, you know that they're still hearing your voice, and that's really important. But the most effective way was definitely going to the State House. And if you go to their office, you can actually make an in-person meeting with them, or at least just letting their assistant know that these are the issues that I'm concerned with. This is why. Please make sure that my representative gets this information. Seem to be the best way. So hopefully that answers your question. Also, of course, on that note, protesting at the State House is a really fun way to network with others and have the opportunity to actually talk to representatives one-on-one in a group, which is a little less intimidating when you want to first do that. What is the single most impactful thing that you could do as an individual to reduce your carbon footprint? Great question. I know for me personally, my biggest way has actually been combated now that we've kind of transitioned into this pandemic. And for me, that was carpooling. So reducing those emissions has been pretty instrumental for my mental health as well as my physical health, having the opportunity to take that time and go sit outside for my office meeting rather than driving back and forth. But of course, the other really big impactful way to reduce your carbon footprint is to cut your meat consumption, whether you want to convert to vegan or vegetarian, or even just participate in Meatless Mondays. It's a really great way. What is your favorite message or advice to inspire people on Earth Day and every day? That's an awesome question. There's a quote that I saw online that I keep screenshotted on my phone that's, I was waiting for someone to make a change, and then I realized that I needed to be the change. And seeing that has really stuck with me since I saw it. And that's one that I keep starred so I can go back to it when I need a little motivation boost. What will you be doing to celebrate Earth Day besides presenting your inspirational webinar? You're too kind. What else will I be doing? I'm going to go to the park after this to spend some time outside. I also woke up early and did a little yoga flow and meditation outside because it is absolutely beautiful today. And also just celebrating Earth Day every day.